Good morning. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone Radio Show, Red Pill Edition. My name is Leon Jones. And before I get into the topic, I want everybody to know when they come to this channel, leave a comment, respect other people's opinions. Now, overall, this is a red pill channel, which means this is a man's channel. I made it a man's channel because we men, particularly black men, need a space to where we can converse our thoughts. Let me be grammatically correct. We can share our thoughts. And the content that I use on this channel is mainly news and political content. And I just want to send a big shout out to all of my subscribers. If you see anybody else who's trolling, just ignore the trolls. Having trolls on your channel increases your view count because a number of people have come over to my channel. They don't address the topic. They like to utilize childish insults, and I'm okay with that. But don't respond to anyone who does not look at the video, because I know who watches my videos. Because some people just thumb it down just to thumb it down. But here on the 401 Talk Zone Radio Show, this is a male space, and the content that I create is to educate men. Now, let me move on to the topic, because this is a very important topic if you want to save your country. The establishment wants to take over this country once again. The establishment wants to take over this country once again. Now, what do I mean by the establishment? I mean the fat cats out there like CNN. CNN is owned by AT&T. In fact, I heard something that AT&T wants to sell CNN because AT&T is in red. In fact, I have AT&T as a cell phone or wireless provider. Now, it's very important that you listen to this content. You can agree with it or you don't have to agree with it. I'd rather you do your own research, because this election means a lot. And I say that because I'm already hearing what the left wing of the Democratic Party wants to do. They want a national mask mandate. And it's funny when we talk about the coronavirus, because the media found a way to integrate the coronavirus into the election to scare people not to vote for capitalism in this country. And if you look at what the corporations want, they want a police state. They don't want to police their cities as far as the riots are going on. They want to tell us how to think, when to think. This is why the media wants to silence us. Now, if you are in the media, whether it's mainstream media or social media, I would find alternative sources to view news. OAN, Blaze, Newsmax. That's where I've gone to. Now, if you are on YouTube and you want to do live shows, you can go to D Live. There's Vimeo. There's DTube. There's Rumble. There's MeWe. And I believe Dan Bongino owns Parler. Now I'm working on a app myself to be a subsidiary of my business. It's going to be called Community. Have to find out what you need to do to establish a platform. But the mainstream media, which is run by corporations, wants to silence all thought that they don't agree with. Now, here's the problem with that as well. Once they've silenced the other side, the side that agrees with the corporations, they will also get silenced. This is what happens when you deal with capitalism. Now, another thing that has taken place. When it comes to a tyrannical government, you want to make sure that you speak in a way to move the ignorant people. And the ignorant people just don't read. And this is a problem because the ignorant people, when they went in and voted, they didn't vote for this country. They voted against the guy whose style that they hate. But the other guy, he has problems himself. He was a womanizer. The media didn't call that out. He had a problem with his son. The media didn't call that out. You see, the media only calls out what they want you to hear. And what I'm telling you, when it comes to the establishment, they want to have every right to tell you how to run your life. And what's going on now, the other side wants to rejoin the Paris Accord. They want to rejoin the WHO. And they want to bring back everything that was in place before Donald Trump was elected to office. That's troubling because in the end, if you go with this Green Deal, it's going to raise the amount you pay on your electric bill. Now, many people who aren't working don't care because they want workers to pay for them anyway. Also, being African American, we used to be the race or the minority that got help. Many of us haven't taken opportunity of the help, especially when it comes to the economy. But being African American, one thing that you must understand too, because there are a number of African Americans who voted as well. And you had people like Kerosene Maxine Waters who said she was disappointed with African American men if they voted for the other guy. Then you had a white liberal who wanted to use sex as a weapon to bring 50 Cent to vote Democrat. You had Joe Biden tell Charlemagne the God on the Breakfast Club that if you don't know who to vote for between me and Trump, you're not black. Now, what I am tired of is these white liberals trying to tell me about being black. First of all, you need to take care of yourself because you need to understand what's going on out here because many of you have been indoctrinated by religion. Many of you have been indoctrinated by the mainstream media. We call it the lamestream media. Many of you don't have a clue of what's going on out here. You just take marching orders. In fact, when you call an African American man or an African American woman a coon because they don't vote like you, you're the real coon because what it is you want to stay on a plantation and take marching orders because you cannot think for yourself. And looking at the landscape out here, if you're an African American man, if you are a conservative woman, if you're a Latina who's conservative, if you are in the LGBTQ community who's conservative, you're going to get attacked. Why are you going to get attacked? By the mainstream media. Because the mainstream media and these corporations believe that they own you. And when you run into a situation where you feel owned, they're going to bully you. So, what you have to do is find alternative sources. This is where innovation comes into play. Yes, it's nice to have a Facebook. It's nice to go on a Fox News. It's nice to go on a CNN. It's nice to go on a MSNBC. But the individuals on those channels, believe it or not, even if Joe Biden wins the election, because the election's not over right now, who is the media going to talk about? Because Donald Trump and coronavirus were the main topics. Well, when that all goes away, I believe the media is going to cut back on personnel. We do not need a large media because the media is no longer news. It's mainly op-ed, just like the op-ed section of the New York Times, the LA Times, the Chicago Times, the Baltimore Sun. What I'm trying to get you individuals to do is to think for yourself. Because in the end, if you understand what's going on, you can navigate through what's taking place. Now, it's funny because you have a number of individuals out here who love socialism and communism, but they've never lived under socialism and communism. And believe it or not, I hear a number of people talking about Kamala Harris out there. Yes, Kamala Harris is Asian. She only becomes black when it's convenient for her. But in the end, when we go back to the crime bill of 1994 that Joe Biden, when he was the senator of Delaware, put out, guess what? It wasn't just Democrats who voted for it. Republicans also voted for it. Black leaders also voted for it. So we have to get that under control by saying it's Joe Biden's fault about the crime bill. Yes, it is his fault, but participants are also partly at fault because when you agree to something and you carry it out, you're just as responsible as the person who initiated the issue. But what I'm saying to you all as well, the establishment wants to control everything that we do. COVID, although it took place, what you weren't told about COVID was when it came to the deaths of COVID or the survival rate of COVID, when it came to deaths, okay, there are over 200,000 deaths. Well, we have 330 million people in this country. COVID is a flu just like the regular flu. Prior to COVID, we had 75 to 80,000 people dying of the flu every year. Also, when it came to the common cold, there is no cure for the common cold, but we got through the common cold. Now, Pfizer has created a vaccine which is 90% effective, and it may not be released until April. You have to get everything approved by the Food and Drug Administration. But the reason why Pfizer didn't come out before the election, because in my humble opinion, it would have been another victory for Donald Trump. And what I believe Joe Biden's going to do is basically plagiarize everything that Donald Trump has done by calling it his own. See, it's not Joe Biden. Everybody talks about Joe Biden. It's the cronies behind Joe Biden. The cronies behind Joe Biden want a socialist government, mainly the female wing of the Democratic Party. And speaking of females, if you brothers are following Black Lives Matter, you need to go to the doctor to get your head examined. Black Lives Matter is a group that was co-founded by Patrisse Cullors, and it's not in the website or on the website, but it was on the website. And the information on that website talked about that she was for feminism, LGBTQ community. She was not for patriarchy in the nuclear family. Again, she was not for patriarchy in the nuclear family. She told you that. She told you that Black Lives Matter was a Marxist organization. But apparently a number of you African-American men who are following Black Lives Matter, you don't believe that. Black Lives Matter wants to talk to Joe Biden to get some compensation because they believe they helped Joe Biden win the election. Folks, the election is not over. The votes are being recounted in Georgia. There's going to be an audit taking place in Pennsylvania to make sure which votes are legal and which votes aren't. And see, the media is trying to keep the ignorant people of the society believing that the election is over. Now, I'm going to go back to 2016. Because if you look at it today, when the election was called for Donald Trump in 2016, that's because Hillary Clinton conceded. But if you want to really look at what's going on, the Democrats in this country have never accepted Donald Trump after 4 years as a legitimate president. Why? Because he lost the popular vote. But he won the Electoral College. And when it comes to these corporations again, and these liberals out here, they think they know more than all of us. In fact, if you look at the map, you look at the middle of the country, the liberals call that the flyover part. Why? Because the liberals believe that the deplorables live in the middle of the country. They believe that if you live on both coasts, you have all the money. Well, if you look at it, New York has Wall Street. California has big tech. But when it comes to the middle of the country, what do they have? They have some manufacturing. They have some farming or agriculture. And if you look at both coasts, that's where the headquarters of all the media is. That's where your established colleges are. And see, what's going on right now? The media really wants to establish what we know as Cloward pivots. Now, if you've been listening to my videos, Cloward Pivens, they were Harvard professors. And what Cloward Pivens wanted to do was to overwhelm the system as we have it today. Then once they overwhelm it, they collapse the system. Then they come up with something new. Well, this is what the left wing of the Democratic Party wants to do. Now, something that is not told right now. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris don't get along. Joe Biden's just a puppet. And these other countries want Joe Biden in office so they can go about business as usual. Meanwhile, if Trump was to get elected again, other countries would not like that. I'm talking about China. Because China can't take advantage of the United States. And see, when it comes to the ignorant voters out here, they didn't vote on Trump's policies. And Trump's policies were good for them, particularly economically. They voted for Biden because they hated Trump. That is a wrong reason to cast a vote. Many of us have an idea of what Biden's policies are, and Biden is basically a puppet to the left-wing socialist wing of the Democratic Party, because when you deal with the left-wingers, they want to put us all in the poorhouse. They want mass immigration. When it comes to security, they want to defund the police. But yet they want to police by running a police state to control you and me. But they want to defund the police when it comes to security in the cities. So we could have riots on a full-time basis if needed. But in the end, that doesn't do anyone any good. Because right now, the Democrats are divided. The media is not going to tell you this because you have the moderate wing of the Democrats versus the left wing of the Democrats. It's just that the left wing of the Democrats are more vocal because the media, again, you're hearing the word media. The media loves the left-wing Democrats. But the media is all operated by corporations. And it's funny because the Democrats used to say corporations don't pay their fair share of taxes, but you don't hear that anymore because the corporations are on their side. You have the Mark Zuckerbergs. You have George Soros. Although he doesn't operate a corporation, he spends a lot of money into getting communist politicians elected. Now, I'm going to tell you what people should be looking at now. If you want to have some semblance of this country, suppose Trump loses, you want to vote Republican to keep the Senate. Right now, there are two Republican seats, Kelly Loeffler and John Perdue of Georgia. They have runoff elections. And the reason why they have runoff elections is because neither of them reached 50%. Now, the Democrats are going to put a lot of money into those Senate races because right now, the Republicans have a 50 to 48 lead. That's significant. And I believe there may be a recount for John James in Michigan. But if the Republicans can maintain the Senate, they've already minimized Nancy Pelosi's power in the House. But if they maintain the Senate, the Democrats will have a lame duck president. Now, again, I can't trust the Republicans either because what you have is a number of disgruntled Republicans who were part of the Lincoln Project. In fact, the Lincoln Project is also putting money into the Georgia senatorial runoff race that's supposed to take place January 5th of 2021 because the Lincoln Project, there are a number of disgruntled Republicans. These are Republicans like Jeb Bush, George Bush. And George Bush was a lousy president. Although I voted for him, he was a lousy president. And I voted for him because he was the lesser of two evils during that time. I didn't like Gore and I did not like John Kerry. But what you got going on right now in this country is you have the establishment with the corporations who want to rule over all of us. And we who are the so-called deplorables have to keep fighting. It's very important that we keep fighting because if we don't fight during this election, a Republican may never be elected again. Why? Because we know the Democrats will do anything and everything to maintain power because what they want is full control. They are obsessed with power. They're obsessed with being parasitic. And what I mean by parasitic, we as taxpayers pay their salary. A number of these politicians have never been out in the real world. They don't know what struggling is. Now, you had people like Rand Paul. He's been out there. He was a doctor. But you have a lot of these other Republicans who've been in power for a long time. Maxine Waters has been in power since 1992. Now, if I had my way, we would have term limits. Term limits would keep career politicians out of office. Or we would have part-time politicians. You look at the state level. Most of the politicians are part-time, except for Pennsylvania, because I used to live in Pennsylvania. But when you look at the media and you look at COVID, you look at people like Cuomo of New York. He wants to stop church services. He wants to close down restaurants. And see, they're using COVID to shut down small businesses. So the only choice that we have will be big businesses. Again, this is the establishment trying to control the masses through COVID. And every death from COVID may have not been COVID. Because if you look at the numbers, this is what's not told. Well, when you're between 18 and 35, your likely survival rate from COVID was 99%. And if you were over 70 years old, your likelihood of surviving was 96%. But see, the media didn't want to spin it that way because they want to keep people in fear. And see, a lot of people here in America are weak-minded people. They vote on their feelings. They don't research anything. And when it comes to education, college isn't worth it because all college is going to do is indoctrinate children and create more social justice warriors. And these social justice warriors with degrees will have a chip on their shoulder like they're oppressed. Because if you think about it, here in America, who is oppressed? I've seen oppression over there in the Middle East. Nobody's oppressed here. And if you look at racism, yes, racism exists. There are pockets of racism. But you have a number of African Americans who are in charge of cities. The reason why those cities are in shambles is because they don't know how to run these cities. They're not putting policies out for free enterprise in the cities. Because many of these African American politicians, and you also have your pastors out here who should be running their churches, they're only in power for the money. And just because somebody looks like me, that doesn't mean I trust them. Because most of these African Americans, I don't trust. They're not my brothers or sisters. Because if something goes down with me, they wouldn't have my back. A number of these African American brothers and sisters will call free thinking brothers and sisters coons, when in essence, they're the coon. And if you look at real coons, you look at this Negro named Van Jones crying on national TV. He made all black men look bad. He made himself look like he was oppressed. But this dude is married to a Caucasian woman, but he calls himself pro-black. Go figure. But in the end, what I'm just telling you all is, you got to be mindful that the establishment is trying to run our lives. And if we don't catch it, we are all going to be slaves. And it won't be about racism. It'll be about classism. So in the end, you all need to understand this. This is a war in this country against capitalism or freedom. But the question to you all is, do you want freedom or do you want tyranny? The choice is yours, but make the right choice, because in the end, we won't have a country if you elect socialists in power. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. Please like the videos. You can also catch the Mind of STEM channel, and on that channel, it's more of an educational channel. I give you topics on science, technology, engineering, and math. And if you want more in-depth topics, check out my blog talk radio show. 215-383-5785 is the number you can call into, and we can have a discussion. Now, if you can't find me on YouTube or Blog Talk Radio, simply check me out on Twitter. And at the end of the day, I'm going to leave you with this. Be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, please have a wonderful and gracious day. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. God bless you. I'm out.